Now, O'Flaherty is a great writer. In my opinion, he's a greater writer than, for example, Samuel Beckett. Okay, that's not a generally held opinion because Beckett is taught in universities generally by middle-class people who are not interested in the type of thing that O'Flaherty wrote about or the consequences of the thought of O'Flaherty. O'Flaherty, for me, is a challenger to Joyce for the great writer of the Irish 20th century.
I want to go back to the last time I was on Aran, which was with the time Liam came here in 1980 for his last visit. He knew it was his last visit, and I think everybody on the island knew it was going to be his last visit. He died 4 years later. That was on the 16th of June, which is Bloomsday.
You're all welcome. We'll try to do this bilingually. It will be bilingual at any rate. Bei mis kaint yn Gaelge fwy sgeret ni fwy sgeretach fwy rahi o calachan agus fwy na head morti farher on ruda harla agus in chin I'll speak what happened between O'Callaghan and Murty Farraher, mostly in Irish, but some quotations in English, and then Dave Lorden will explain what I have said on a higher level. I must say he will. He talks on a high level about these things, and you'll know what I mean when he starts. He's good at it. Anyway, I welcome you all. I know it's not right to welcome one person out of the group, but I'd like to welcome Margaretta Darcy.
Called over the weekend by several members of the committee, the resurrection of Liam O'Flaherty, and long may it continue. And I think this is, for all of us, we're all hoping this is part of the beginning of something much bigger for O'Flaherty, because O'Flaherty is certainly, for me, arguably, you know, and I love a good argument about these things, and I hope we'll have a row after I talk, and the floor will be open for that row to anybody who wants to come in. I think it's very important that we do argue about O'Flaherty, because we're not learning about him unless we're arguing about him, and we're not doing him any justice unless we're arguing about him.
He's totally in tune with where he is. And what he did afterwards might suggest he wasn't, but I think I felt he was totally in tune with I am back on Aran, I know where I am, I remember what it was like, I remember who I was with. That's what that message said to me, that tapping of the rock and that greeting of that rock, right? To kill a man is nothing. That does not hurt. But to hurt some living thing, that is kind, is ugly. It's like murdering a dream. Now that's the voice of a man who has been in the trenches, where you have to kill a man. That's the only reason you're in the trenches. There's no other purpose. You're a soldier. So he was trained. And he would have come from Aran, so he would have been tough enough anyhow, right? But he was trained to kill, trained to fight. And he was in the guts of the trenches, right? And he's written about it really effectively and powerfully and well in Return of the Brute.
But he had not much interest in farming, and what little he had never resulted in profit. He could not tell his own sheep from a neighbour's. And one day, as he was passing by one of his fields, he saw a number of sheep in it, which he mistook for those of a villager, for whose honesty he had little regard. "Bad luck to that thieving Pat Mór," he muttered, as he knocked down the gap and drove the sheep to the pound. Returning home, he threatened to flog his son for not keeping an eye on the land. My grandmother wept and said he would send her to the poorhouse. He had to pay 2p each to get his own sheep out of the pound.
Hey, de Dhia, no mag de mhór. Heb we jappertje met je maken?
Zal ik tenus? Van 80 stiefel, die leg je in de shed, en ga er vandaan.
Het was geen tijd met die tong.
Spanish.
Spanisch?
Zij,
When I told my colleagues in Dublin that I was going to publish Na Bláthanna, I had just discovered he was alive, number one, and that he was living in Dublin, number two. A friend for whom I have huge respect and is enormously well read in literature, in Irish literature especially, right? His comment was, Bláthanna is a dangerous man. There is actual words, I've never forgotten them. Bláthanna is a dangerous man, right? Now this man was 80 at the time, or 78 or whatever, right? So it's easy to understand where the reputation came from.
What kind of novel is Skerrit? Okay, again, a sign of great writers, there's an argument about this. Some critics will say it's a romantic realist novel. Okay, some people will say it's a nihilist novel, a novel that rejects human life, that rejects meaning in human life, and so on. And others will argue that it's a melodramatic novel. It's a novel of melodrama. Okay, in other words, it's a soap opera or an opera. Okay, and it has operatic qualities. I could see Skerrit on an opera stage. Actually, if somebody took time to do a libretto for it, I think it would be beautiful. And I also think that there's romance in the novel, romantic in the sense of Shelley. I mean, political romantic, and I do think there's nihilism in the novel, undoubtedly, and it comes very, very close to being a nihilistic novel, and I'll go into the reason why that happened in O'Flaherty's life in a second. But I believe that it is fundamentally not all of it's all of those things, but more than those things, it is an allegorical novel. Okay? What is allegory? Allegory is very simply a story that on the face of it is just of local significance, okay? But in fact is of much greater kind of global significance than that, okay? We're all familiar with allegory in its miniature form of parable, okay? When we've all have some experience of the Bible, I presume, we've all read or heard or whatever, and the Bible is full of parables. And allegory is used by intellectuals all down through the centuries to condense as much into the smallest possible space as they can, okay? And to take the raw data of the world, which is overwhelming. I mean, one of the things that we can say about the world now and 100 years ago is that it is overwhelmingly complex, okay? And one of the things that a writer like O'Flaherty does is he takes that raw data and he cooks it down, and he cooks it down, and he cooks it down, and he takes out the essence of it and he serves it up in a digestible, accessible form, okay? The allegory that stands behind for me, this story of Skerrit, okay, which Joseph has gone into, is a story of a battle between two autocrats for the soul and the body of the local peasantry and the local people, if we boil it down like that.